Good morning. In today's lesson we will be reviewing the various submodes of the ABRIS AMMS. We will only be looking at the submodes of the various operating modes and not covering the information displayed on each operating mode page. Please see the Black Shark 2 ABRIS AMMS training mission for an overview of the operating modes. If you are having trouble hearing me, please exit the mission and turn down your cockpit and world sounds. I have provided power to the ABRIS and INU for you. While it's booting, move your camera to zoom in on the ABRIS system, but do not slew your view to the side or the mission highlights will not align properly. To review, the ABRIS controls are just below the ABRIS screen and are from left to right the brightness control knob, push buttons 1 through 5, and the cursor manipulator knob. Keep in mind that the cursor manipulator knob has multiple functions depending on the mode you are in. The cursor manipulator knob can cycle through characters while in text editing mode, move the selector while in a menu, or move the cursor around on the map. Pressing the cursor manipulator knob will move to the next character position in text editing mode, select your current position in a menu, change the axis of your cursor on the map. If you need additional information about any of the systems that we will discuss here today, please refer to your flight manual. You can find the flight manual in the docs folder of your installation folder. Let's finish waiting for the ABRIS to boot up. Remember, it takes about 120 seconds to boot. Press the spacebar when the menu page appears. This is the menu page. Its submodes are Option, Control, Plan, GNSS, and Nav. Let's look at the various options of the ABRIS by pressing push button 1 Option. The Option submode sets the options that run through the ABRIS system. From this page you can change various options such as adjusting the time, adjusting the local time whether it's +2, -8, etc. You can also change whether you want magnetic or true heading. From here you can also change the scale of the XTE deviation scale on the nav page in case you find yourself severely off course. The two most widely used options on this page are the RMI or radiomagnetic indicators. You can set them to be either to your next steer point, from your previous steer point, VOR, or radio NDB bearing stations. You can view the RMI indicators on the ARC and HSI pages with a yellow and red greater than symbols. You can change the settings here by rotating the cursor manipulator knob to move the highlight to the item you want to change. You can also use push button 2 or 3 to move up and down, and then use push button 4, Change, to change the item. Take a moment to look through the various options available to you on this page. When you are done, press the spacebar key to continue. Press push button 1 Setup to go to the Options Select page. Pressing Setup brings up a black menu with various options to choose from, such as Units, Performance Setups, Alarms, and Charts. Using the cursor manipulator knob, move the selector down to Units by rotating your mouse wheel over the knob and press the cursor manipulator knob with the right mouse button to select it. Press the spacebar when you are in the Units menu. The Units menu allows you to manipulate how all units of measurement are conveyed to you, whether it's metric or imperial. Take a moment to review this screen, then press push button 1 Setup to bring up the Setup menu again. Using push button 2 to move down and push button 3 to move up, move the highlight over Performance and then press push button 1 Setup. In this screen you can set various cruising speeds and bank angles. You can also set fuel consumption rates here. Press push button 1 Setup, move to the Signal page, then press the spacebar to continue. In the Alarms page, you can set the various parameters for when the in-cockpit alarms sound during flight. Take a moment to review the alarm screen and then move to the Charts menu. Press spacebar to continue. From this page, you can tell the ABRIS what kinds of information you want it to display on the map. You can use this to declutter the map screen by removing things such as power lines, rivers, radio beacons, etc. Move the selector over the item you want to change, and then using push button 4 Change to change the option to either a plus or a minus. Exit the options sub-menu and return to the menu page by hitting push button 5 Menu. Now back on the menu page, let's explore the control page. Press push button 2 Control to go to the control page of the menu mode. The first page of the control screen shows the history of any system messages that the ABRIS has displayed in the system message bars on the various operating modes. It also displays a timestamp of when the message was created. Similar to the options submode of the menu page, you can press push button 1 Setup to select other options. The options available in the control submode are Messages, K041, and Database. Use either the cursor manipulator knob or the push buttons to move to the K041 screen, and then press the spacebar to continue. In the K041 screen, you can adjust various parameters of the K041 targeting system and perform a systems check on it. Change the K041 system from work to check by pressing push button 4 Change. Don't forget to change it back when you're done. Take a moment to familiarize yourself with the screen, then move to the DTB page from push button 1 Setup options. Press the spacebar to continue. From the DTB, you can load and save overlays from the current or previous mission, or prepared from the mission editor as required for your mission. Exit the DTB or control page by pressing push button 5 Menu to return to the main menu operating mode. We are now back on the menu operating mode's main page. Next, we will look at the GNSS submode and review the sensors. Press push button 4 GNSS to go to the GNSS page. This is the main screen for the GNSS sensors. It lists technical information about your location, heading, altitude, and speed. It also lists information about the various satellites you are connected to. The circle graph, also known as a constellation, will have circles for Navstar and boxes for GLONASS satellites. The green color represents satellites that we are receiving a good signal from, and the white color represents satellites we are not receiving a proper signal from or is not being used in the navigation calculations. The bar graph on the GNSS page displays the signal strength for the various satellites we have overhead in our constellation. The submodes of the GNSS page are Menu, returns us to the menu operating mode. User changes from route mode to user-defined. Calc is used to view the constellation and calculate time to an airdrome anywhere in the world. System performs a system test. Nav takes us to the nav operating mode. Press push button 3 Calc to go to the calculation screen. You can use Calc mode to view the satellite constellation at any given airdrome and time in the world. To view this, using the cursor manipulator knob, enter KBLT in the airdrome destination box. Rotate the knob to select the letter you want, then move to the next character by pressing the cursor manipulator knob with the right mouse button. Press push button 3 to move the entry box from airdrome destination to ETA. Change the ETA to 2200 hours. Once you have entered your flight destination, airdrome, and ETA, press push button 4 Enter to start the calculations. You will notice the PRAME ETA, or Predicted Receiver Autonomous Integrity Monitoring Scale, will begin calculating the data and display a green plus sign as it calculates. When the calculations are done, it will then display the results in green text and display the satellite constellation for Kabuleti at 2200 hours. If the airdrome you enter does not exist, it will display in yellow text, "Not found." If the calculations are not accurate, the PRAME ETA will display in yellow the time, "No." Press push button 2 GNSS to return to the GNSS submode screen. Back on the GNSS submode screen, let's look at the system options. Press push button 4 System to go to the GNSS system page. The system screen displays technical information about the GNSS sensors. Under push button 1 Setup, there are quite a few options to choose from. However, the only one that has an effect on this screen is the built or built-in sensor. Press push button 1 Setup, then move to the built option page. Press the spacebar to continue. From the built-in sensor test page, you can adjust some parameters such as elevation mask by changing the elevation mask line in degrees. If you will be flying through a heavily mountainous area, you may want to change to a more narrow view for greater accuracy of the PRAME. When you change the mask, anything below your elevation mask will not be used in navigational calculations. If you are having an issue with a particular satellite, you can use the Exclude SV line to remove the troublesome satellite from your calculations. You must move down to the Save and Test line and initiate a test of the GNSS in order for the changes to be saved by pressing push button 4 Test while the line is highlighted. Run a system test now by pressing push button 4 Test. While running the test, strings of numbers and letters will be running in the box at the bottom of the screen. After a little bit, you should stop the test by pressing push button 4 Stop. Return back to the GNSS system page by pressing push button 1 Setup and then choosing the AirInc option. Press the spacebar to continue once back on the GNSS system page. Press push button 2 GNSS to return to the GNSS submode. For more information and an in-depth review of the GNSS PRAME calculations, see page 7-83 of your flight manual. Press push button 1 Menu to return to the menu operating mode. Let's take a look at the Plan submode of the menu page. Press push button 3 Plan to enter the Plan submode. The Plan submode takes you to a screen that displays a map of the region and your current flight plan in table format. Using the cursor manipulator knob, you can cycle between the various waypoints. Pressing push button 2 Edit will bring up the edit options. These options will allow you to adjust the speed, vertical navigation or altitude, meteorological information, weather, and fuel consumption for any given waypoint. Pressing push button 1 Select will bring up several options. From here, you can load, save, unload, revise, delete, invert, SAR, or add info. Most of these options are pretty self-explanatory, however, let's view them in a bit more detail. Load loads a saved flight plan from memory. Save saves a flight plan to memory. Unload unloads the current flight plan, giving you a blank slate to create a new flight plan. Revise will restore your current flight plan to its default values and waypoint order. Delete will delete a waypoint in the flight plan. Invert inverts the order of the waypoints in your flight plan, handy for traveling a route backwards to return to home base. SAR, using the cursor manipulator knob, you can cycle between the waypoints of your route. Add info adds info to the map such as landmarks or lines on the map that can form polygons to denote areas of interest. Let's save our current flight plan to memory. Press push button 1 and go into the Save option. In this screen, push buttons 1 through 3 work similar to the cursor manipulator knob. Push button 1 will move the character to the right, Push buttons 2 and 3 will cycle the character. When you have finished naming your current flight plan, press push button 4 Save to save the flight plan to memory. Let's unload our flight plan from the ABRIS so we can create our own. Press push button 1 Select to bring up the menu, then choose Unload. When you have unloaded your current flight plan, press the spacebar to continue. To create a new waypoint, press push button 2 Draw. The first waypoint will be centered on your aircraft. Press push button 1 Add to add the new waypoint. Here you can set the type of point it will be. Flyby is a mandatory passing of a waypoint with a fin turn lead distance. Over is a mandatory passing over a waypoint along the previous route leg track. Fin is a mandatory passing over a waypoint along the following route leg track. See page 7-44 in your flight manual for a diagram of these points. Press push button 1 Enter to save waypoint 1 as a flyby. To create a new waypoint, press push button 1 Edit to bring up the menu. You can either edit your first waypoint or you can insert a new waypoint. Insert a new waypoint. Using the cursor manipulator knob, move the green box that has appeared around your aircraft to the highlighted point. Rotating the knob will move the cursor along one axis. Press the cursor manipulator knob to switch between the horizontal and vertical axis. When you are satisfied with placement, press push button 1 Add to save your new waypoint. Press the spacebar to continue. Give your waypoint a unique name, then press push button 1 Enter to save your new waypoint. Repeat the same steps to add a new waypoint at the highlighted point. When you're done creating your third waypoint, press the spacebar to continue. Remember that ABRIS can only hold up to 5 waypoints. In order to use these new waypoints, we have to first activate the flight plan. Press push button 5 Plan to return to the plan submode. Activate the flight plan by pressing push button 4 Active. When your flight plan is activated and made current, the ABRIS brings you to the nav page for convenience. Navigate back to the plan submode via the menu page. Arc, HSI, Menu, Plan. Press the spacebar to continue. Let's practice adding some notations to our map. Press push button 1 Select to bring up the select options. Select the Add Info option. You will notice a black box will appear around your aircraft. Using the cursor manipulator knob, move the black box to the highlighted area, then press push button 1 Add Point. Press the spacebar to continue. When you click on Add Point, you have a choice of selecting either directly or relative type points. A directly typed point adds a point of interest directly to the map. A relative point is used to create a navigation point from the database that's bearing and ranges are known. Highlight directly and press push button 1 again, or select it with the cursor manipulator knob. Press the spacebar to continue. Here you can name the new point, see its latitude and longitude coordinates, adjust the point's call sign, radio band, and altitude. You can press push button 2 move to adjust the position of the cursor box if you need to. Push button 3 will move the entry field to the next one in the same manner as using the cursor manipulator knob. Using push button 4 type, you can change the type of point this will represent, such as VOR, airports, NDB radio bearing beacons, landmarks, obstacles, and reference points. Some of these different types will have different attributes to adjust. Obstacle, for instance, has an altitude attribute. Notice as you switch between. Similar to the add point mode, move the black box to one of the highlighted points. Press push button 2 add line. When you enter the line mode, you will see several line color options you can choose from. You can cycle between them by pressing push button 2 color. In this screen, you also have the option of scaling the map with push buttons 3 and 4 to get a more accurate placement of your lines. Choose a color and then move the black box to the other highlighted point. As you move the box around, you will see a red line connecting your cursor to the previous point. Press push button 1 enter to save your line. Repeat the previous steps to connect the other 2 points and then close off the square. When you are done, press push button 5 cancel to exit the line entry mode. Press push button 5 plan until you get to the nav page. Press the spacebar to continue when you are on the nav page. The nav, ARC, and HSI pages all use the same submodes and options, so we will discuss all 3 at the same time. The options you have available on these pages are Search, searches for a specific map object such as airports, NDB radio bearing beacons, landmarks, etc. Map brings up options about the map including scaling in and out. Flight Plan brings up the flight plan in a table format. Suspend will suspend your current steer point and make the next waypoint in your flight plan the active steer point. You can use Suspend to manually cycle between the available waypoints. ARC and HSI takes you to the next operating mode of the ABRIS. Press push button 1 search to bring up the search options. From the list you can choose from Airport, VOR, NDB, Waypoint, or Town. Choose Airport by pressing push button 1. When you search for an object, in this case airports, the ABRIS will display the closest of that object to your aircraft as well as display bearing information and distance. Using the cursor manipulator knob, you can cycle through the table. Pressing push button 2 will create a simple one waypoint flight plan to the selected object. Pressing push button 3 info will bring up more detailed information about the selected object. Pressing push button 4 name will bring up a search box where you can type in the name of a particular place you are looking for using the cursor manipulator knob. Press push button 5 nav to return to the nav page. Press push button 2 map to enter the map submode. Under the map options, we can get information about an object on the map by pressing push button 1 info. By moving a red box cursor over any object on the map, it will display information about that object. Pressing info again will center the map on that object. Pressing push button 3 scale plus and 4 scale minus will zoom the map in and out. Press push button 2 ERBL. Like in the info mode, you are given a red plus cursor that you can move around the map. A red line will extend from your aircraft icon to the red box. In this mode, bearing information, distance, ETA, and altitude are displayed. If you wanted to check the distance of 2 map objects, you can do so by moving the cursor over one of the map objects. Press push button 2 marker, and then move the cursor over the second map object. Bearing information and distance will then be generated from the first object to the second. Continue exploring this mode by moving the cursor over various objects on the map, and watch how the information changes. Pressing push button 2 ERBL will behave like the marker function did. When you are done, press push button 5 nav to return to the nav page. Press push button 3 flight plan to enter the flight plan submode. When you enter the flight plan submode, your flight plan is displayed in a table format. Vertical nav will allow you to adjust the vertical navigation of a waypoint. 2 creates a simple one waypoint flight plan to the selected steer point. Waypoint makes the selected waypoint the current steer point. Nav will take you back to the nav operating mode. Press push button 5 nav to return to the nav page. This completes today's lesson on the advanced options of the KA-50 Black Shark's ABRIS A MMS. You may continue to explore the ABRIS options, or you may exit the mission at any time.